What's up, Summoners? I'm glad to see you guys again. My name is Nathan Ng, and I'll be your host for today's video. I'll be running you guys through the upcoming changes for patch 11.5, and like always, these changes aren't always 100% set in stone, but we generally see most of them make it through. Before we start though, make sure you hit that sub button because every single one counts, and we really want to continue making content for you guys. Alright, with that all being said, let's hop right into it. What would an upcoming changes video be without the skins? We've got some B skins headed our way next patch. Beemon, Bizahar, and UB are all headed towards the shop next patch. These are some cute, silly skins, and at the very least, Kog'maw needs one since no one is playing him right now, which is probably why they're also buffing him. I don't know, kind of sus. Here's our question of the day, by the way. What skin ideas do you have, or what champion do you want to see some new skins for? I've always wanted to see Origami Orianna, or maybe just Papercraft Orianna, or maybe, Demon Blade Talon. That would be really cool. Let us know your answers in the comments down below. Next up are the balance changes. We'll kick things off with some item buffs. First is Black Cleaver, which is essentially getting a revert. First, the cost is being reduced from 3300 to 3100, the health is being increased from 300 to 400, and the Butcher passive is being removed. In its place, you'll now gain movement speed when you deal damage to an enemy. Each stack of Carve on the enemy will now grant you 5 movement speed for 2 seconds. In place of damage, you're going to get a little more health and more mobility now. In the last video, somebody mentioned that these were the changes, and a huge shout out to you. This will especially make it powerful on fighters that rely more on abilities like Renekton, as well as some AD juggernauts. Be on the lookout for Darius, Set, and Garen next patch, which, you probably have to deal with anyway. Next is a buff for Maw Mortius. Riot went with a very safe approach as the price has been reduced from 3100 to 2800. The cost reduced, it should be easier to complete and tech in once you need the magic damage shield. Though it occupies a slot to only provide a shield, there are a few times where it's more valuable than other items can offer. Now that the price has been reduced, Maw will be a decent purchase even if the effect might not be as impactful as those other items. But now there's a niche for it. Serpent's Fang is up for a buff next patch as well. The Shield Reaver passive is getting some changes. Dealing damage to an enemy will apply a debuff that reduces incoming shields by 50% or 25% based on whether you're melee or ranged. When you damage an enemy who isn't affected by Shield Reaver, you'll reduce the shields on them by 50% or 25% with the same conditions. What a change! If this goes through, Serpent's Fang is going to be an excellent counter to shields. The timing won't necessarily be as strict as before, and overall, the effect seems like it'll be much stronger. Now we got some item adjustments, starting with Stridebreaker. The power is being shifted around with the dash distance first being increased from 200 to 300. However, the slow is being reduced from 60% to 40% and the damage lowered from 100 to 75% total AD. Overall, this change means that the user will be more mobile, but will be less crippling for the enemy hit by it. Thus, it'll be a little bit weaker when you're trying to make picks, but it'll be a much better enabler if you're playing a champion that struggles to reach the target in the first place. Muramana is also getting some spicy changes next patch. Instead of both abilities and attacks dealing 2.5% of your max mana as damage, these will be differentiated. Attacks will deal 1.5% of maximum mana, while abilities will deal 3.5% for melee and 2.7% for range of your max mana, as well as 6% of your total AD. That's a massive buff for AD spellcasters. Champions like Jace, Corki, and Ezreal are bound to pop off next patch if this change goes through. Now let's go ahead and run through the champion changes. In the top, we've got one change, and that's for Jax. Other champions in the same archetype like Fiora and Irelia are leaving him in the dust. With the meta shifting following the NERFS Core Drinker, it's not fair if Jax doesn't get to play the game while his rivals do. Jax's AD per level is receiving a giant buff, going up from 3.38 to 4.25 next patch. This will help our Jax's scaling significantly, especially because that extra base damage will make Trinity Force's Spellblade even stronger. I do want to take a second to let you guys know that we're running a promotion over at ProGuides.com. Until now to the end of the month, you can use the code RANKUP2021 to get 20% off a subscription, so make sure you check it out. That's gonna be it for the top lane. Now let's go ahead and go into the jungle. The jungle features a heap of changes, so let's get into it. The first is an anticipated nerf to Udyr. This guy has been eating solo queue players alive. An actual animal, his ban rate has been exceeding 60%, while it's getting closer and closer to where Samara was upon her release. Next patch, his health per level will be reduced from 99 to 92, and his Phoenix Stance damage is being reduced from 50 to 275 to 40 to 240. The loss of 35 damage on Phoenix Stance is a sizable one into the mid and late game, and the lowered sourding damage also means that his clear speed will take a hit. Even after these changes, I'd expect Udyr to remain pretty powerful. Rammus is also getting nerfed. His health per level is being lowered from 95 to 80. While he's going to be a little bit squishier than before, he won't end up significantly weaker. As a tank, Rammus does build a decent amount of health. This means it'll be a lot easier for him to kill next patch, just by a little bit. If you really want to dig into it though, Rammus specifically, losing health is a lot more impactful than other champions. Since Rammus gains a ton of resistances with his W, each point of health is more valuable, but again, it's Rammus. Everything's gonna be okay. Gragas is next for a nerf on his Q's mana cost being increased from 60 to 80 to 80 flat. I think jungle Gragas won't be affected by this, but it's just another excuse to take blue buffs, right? What it will do, however, is it'll definitely hit Gragas when he lanes. You won't be able to spam Q for poke and sustain, and instead, enemies will be rewarded more heavily for dodging them. So better get good and not miss. Gragas' solo Q performance has been average, but he has seen a ton of presence in competitive play, meriting his nerf. Now for a buff, we have Trundle first. His Q's cooldown has been reduced from 4 to 3.5 seconds. Okay, this is not the buff I expected, but it's the buff that Trundle players need right now. He's doing very poorly in high elo and just a little bit below average in low elo. This buff is huge no matter what bracket you're playing him in. Not only does it increase his clear speed, he's also going to be a much stronger duelist as a result. While I don't think he'll be an OP pick off this change alone, it's a very nice buff that should help Trundle find his footing in the meta. Next is Master Yi. His ease on hit damage is being increased from 18 to 50 to 20 to 60. With this change, I'd expect his buff to revolve more around on hit effects in general. Ginsu's Rage Blade, Blade of the Ruined King, and all that good stuff. While some players have been starting to build lethality and crit chance on him, this change will probably steer him in the direction of attack speed and maybe 1 or 2 defensive items. Finally, Sejuani is receiving a buff to her W. The second hit damage is going up from 5.25 to 6% max HP. While this buff isn't huge, it'll help out Sejuani's jungle clear and also allow her to deal more damage at all stages of the game. Next up, let's go ahead and run through the mid changes. Azir has been an incredible force in competitive play, and you know what that means. Nerfs. Sorry for everybody else who doesn't play Azir, but I guess 5 people could ruin it for all of us. His W soldier attack damage will be lowered from 60 to 160 to 50 to 150. Unfortunately, Azir will still underperform in solo queue with no buffs in sight. It's an unfortunate case for solo queue players, but hopefully Riot can come up with a solution that will allow him to see a reasonable amount of success at all levels of play. But seriously though, why? We got menaces like Yone and Darius, and they're nerfing Azir. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion. I think it's a little bit weird, but it makes sense in the pro play scene. Alright, next, Qiyana is getting some big buffs. Her W's on hit damage is being increased from 8 to 40 to 8 to 64. W movement speed from 5 to 10 to 5 to 13%, and her R damage up from 100 to 240 to 100 to 300. These buffs speak for themselves. Qiyana will be more mobile and also have better damage in both short bursts and longer drawn out fights. Qiyana has been underperforming outside of high elo as well as in the upper levels of play. With this buff, she'll definitely feel much more impactful in the late game. Next up is the bottom lane with another big list of changes. We've got Seraphine up for another nerf, but this one is aimed specifically at her power as a bot lane carry. First, her passive notes from allies now deal 25% damage, but the decay after the first note is being removed. Next, her ultimate's cooldown is being increased from 160 to 120 to 180 to 120. Finally, her passive note damage scaling is being changed from 4 to 16 with the smooth progression to 4, 8, 14, and 24 at levels 1, 6, 11, and 16. This last change in particular is what's going to differentiate bottom lane Seraphines to mid lane Seraphine players. You absolutely must hit those key levels in order to hit your power spikes as Seraphine. Mid lane, which provides access to more XP, will allow you to hit those ultimate upgrades and also let you hit those milestones on her passive. Since the note damage from allies has been reduced, mid lane Seraphine will remain practically untouched by that change. However, the fact that Seraphine's level 1 ultimate now has a 180-second cooldown is a substantial nerf. A 3-minute cooldown on a level 1 ultimate is one of the longest in the game. Senna is also getting nerfed. Specifically, her interaction with Ginsu's is being targeted by what's coming up. Senna's passive will no longer grant excess crit over 100%, but instead convert it to lifesteal with the same ratio as before. Ginsu's crit chance conversion is also now capped at 100%, and the on-hit damage is now affected by champion crit modifiers. One of the few champions in the game that has one of them, Senna will be much weaker with Ginsu's as opposed to before. As a result, we expect players will need to find new builds on her starting next patch. Kog'maw has been underplayed and is getting a buff next patch. His W's damage is being increased from 3 to 6% to 3 to 7% on his target's maximum health. While this is a nice mid to late game buff, Kog'maw doesn't feel like a pick who's worth the investment right now. There are so many other marksmen who can be picked more flexibly and oftentimes provide more utility. Comparatively, Jinx can do a lot of stuff that Kog'maw can, but she can provide more utility and is a little bit safer as a result of her passive, which provides bonus movement speed on takedown. Samara is also getting buffed because she was over-nerfed this patch. I mean, seriously, I don't want her to get buffed, but the nerf was a lot. Her AD per level is being increased from 2.3 to 3, while her Q's damage ratio is going up from 80 to 110% to 80 to 120%. This is a nice buff that should help Samira climb up by just a bit. Finally, Twitch is getting an adjustment, shifting some power away from his AP builds and helping out his AD builds. His passive's AP ratio is being lowered from 3 to 2.5%, while his ultimate's bonus AD is going up from 25 to 55 to 30 to 60. The duration on it is also being increased by a second. While right wants AP Twitch to still be an option, this is a big nerf to his build. However, the increased ultimate duration and the bonus AD will still help out AP Twitch, even if it's only by a little bit. If you're an AD Twitch player though, this is nothing but a buff. With the bottom lane covered, let's wrap it up with supports. The first support getting nerfed is Shaco. We typically see him in the jungle, but support Shaco has been seeing a fair amount of play in several patches now, which I personally have never ran into, but I don't know. First, his W's AoE damage is being reduced from 15 to 35 to 10 to 30, while the single target damage is being decreased from 35 to 95 to 25 to 85. However, his W will deal 10 to 50 bonus damage to jungle monsters. The intent of this change is very clear. Jungle Shaco will remain essentially untouched, while AP Shaco support is taking a massive hit next patch. This nerf is huge, and support Shaco might have just been killed before it even had a chance to become meta, which honestly, not super opposed to. Next is a nerf for Rel. Her base armor is going down from 35 to 32, while her W's cooldown is being increased from 11 to 13 seconds. Rel has been performing exceptionally well, and these nerfs should keep her in check. The increased cooldown on her W forces players not to only be more careful while casting it, but also forces them to commit harder when they use it. The 3-second armor nerf isn't that big of a deal, however. Pyke is set to receive buffs next patch. His passive gray health storage is being changed from 25 to 50% based on champion level, to 10% plus 25% lethality, increased to 35% to 50% lethality when 2 or more enemies are nearby. This is an interesting change that will not only buff up support Pyke, but will also significantly hurt mid lane Pyke. Solo lane Pyke might be dead next patch, thank God. Until you build lethality, you'll be stuck with only 10% regeneration. In the bottom lane, you'll be playing against 2 opponents, meaning that you'll have a base of 35% to back you up. What will be interesting to consider is if players will find a way to work around this. For example, a lane swap or a support roaming immediately after pushing a wave would make it so that support Pyke will be able to access a bigger heal. Honestly, I don't want him to be buffed in any way, but you know, that's just because I hate Pyke. I hate a lot of champions. Finally, we're back to square one with Karma. Her Q's cooldown will be reduced from 9 to 7 seconds to 8 to 6 seconds. After performing rather abysmally for months now, Karma has gotten buffs after buffs. While one of the initial nerfs that gutted her was a huge nerf to her Q's cooldown, buffing it up next patch will partially revert that change. Since Karma relies heavily on her Q early on, this is a huge buff, and Karma can hopefully find some balance. Of course, players need to also be on the lookout for some solo lane Karma as a result of this upcoming change. That'll be wrapping up our upcoming changes video for patch 11.5. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought about the changes in the comments down below, and also don't forget to check out the description for a link to our Discord. We'd really love to have you guys be a part of the community, and, well, speaking of community, I think we're all pretty awesome, except for Kangas. He sucks a lot. In League of Legends too, and just as a person. Anyway, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Oh, spread positivity. Peace.